Let's examine Congress's goals for TSCA. First, there's this recognition that chemicals make up an important part of our lives. We've grown as a country to rely on chemical substances, so there's this appreciation in the benefits, but there's also a realization that chemicals can pose a risk to our lives. The second congressional objective is to get more information about these chemicals out into the public. The information is in the hands of the manufacturers, and some of it is confidential, so EPA must evaluate this information and restrict proprietary information. And third, if there's an unreasonable risk, Congress wants EPA to regulate the product and protect humans and the environment. But Congress also wants EPA to do this without impeding technological innovation. TSCA is about regulating products, not waste. Think of this law as regulating upstream well before products enter the waste stream. So it's a pollution prevention law. One of the hallmarks of this law is that it creates an inventory of all chemical substances in commerce. If you want to manufacture or import a chemical, you first check to see if it's in the inventory. If it is, then you can proceed. But if the chemical is not on the inventory, then you need to submit a pre-manufacture notice. The pre-manufacture notice must be submitted 90 days before manufacture or import of a new chemical substance and must include all the test data demonstrating the safety of the chemical. So, what does TSCA cover? It covers any chemical substance or mixture. This is extremely broad and would encompass almost every form of matter, be it natural or artificial. But as with any law, you know there are exemptions. TSCA doesn't cover pesticides. We'll cover that next under FIFRA. It doesn't cover any tobacco products, nuclear material, or any foods, drugs, or cosmetics. These are all addressed by other laws. TSCA also includes an exemption for small quantity uses, such as research and development. TSCA regulates three major sectors: importers, producers and manufacturers, and distributors. One note, the chemical product must be intended for distribution into commerce. So, a manufacturer is not regulated under TSCA until the manufacturer's product is considered ready for commerce, hence the exemption for R&D users. TSCA's requirements begin with the decision by a person to manufacture, process, import, or distribute a new chemical substance or an existing chemical substance for a new use. The person must submit to EPA a notice of intent to introduce the chemical into commerce. The notice must contain information about the effects of the chemical on risk to humans and the environment. Once EPA receives the notice, it has 90 days to determine if the chemical poses an unreasonable risk of injury to humans or the environment, including risk to potentially exposed or susceptible populations, but no consideration of cost or other non-risk factors. If EPA fails to make a determination after 90 days, it must refund any fees, but its failure to make a determination does not relieve it of its obligation to do so. The EPA must still make a determination. If EPA determines that there is an unreasonable risk, then it has a few choices. It can prohibit the chemical, it can restrict its use or distribution, it can require warning labels, or it can require strict record keeping on manufacture, use, and distribution. EPA could also require testing if it finds that a chemical poses an unreasonable risk of injury, but only under two scenarios. First, if EPA believes the chemical may pose an unreasonable risk and there's insufficient information and experience on the effects of the chemical and testing is necessary to develop this information, then it can require testing. Second, if EPA believes that the chemical will enter the environment or marketplace in substantial quantities or there may be substantial human exposure and there's insufficient information on the chemical's effects and testing would provide this information, then EPA can require testing to determine or predict this risk. Testing will look for carcinogens, birth defects, behavioral disorders, or unreasonable risk of injury. Standard of review is one of unreasonable risk, but it also includes consideration of risk to potentially exposed or susceptible subpopulations. In doing so, it cannot take into consideration the cost or non-risk factors. Most recently, EPA restricted the use of the paint stripper methylene chloride. In 2014, there were some well-publicized deaths associated with this product. It took one particular family's public intercession to move EPA to impose restrictions. It's essentially banned, but if the person is properly trained, they can still use it.